Hello, everyone. Welcome into the best place for the best takes on this Monday, December 9th, 2024. We have got an amazing one after a great Week 14 of football. We've got an interesting game tonight, Bengals-Cowboys. I'll get into that shortly. But I want to start first, not with the primetime game, but with the best quarterback in the NFL. Ben, isn't that Patrick Mahomes, who is playing the Kansas City Chiefs, which would have been the primetime game? No, it is not. Right now, the best quarterback in the NFL is Josh Allen, and I know that people are going to immediately rebuttal with their favorite quarterbacks. The reality is, I like Lamar Jackson a lot. He was at one point this season the MVP favorite and in the lead for that race. But Lamar Jackson has not played like himself and has not played his best football over the last month or so. I love Patrick Mahomes. I think he is the best quarterback in the NFL in general, and I probably will be saying, and I will probably be touting his praises come February when he three-peats, because that is the reality, especially when you watch yesterday's game, which we will get into. But right now, we already know Patrick doesn't play his best football in the regular season. Patrick has sort of become a guy. Patrick elevates his level of play in the postseason to such a dramatic level that we just don't see in the regular season. He is going to play within his boundaries in the regular season, and he's not going to try to overdo it. And coaching and key good decisions will be what ends up winning the Chiefs games. And I don't want to bleed too much into our next topic before we get into the Chiefs, but that's just a really good situational team. And I like Patrick a lot, but he's not the best quarterback in the NFL right now. Josh Allen literally put up a performance on Sunday that we have never seen from an NFL quarterback before. Forget the most fantasy points of all time, which is what I know people care about, the 51 fantasy points. 3 touchdowns in the air, 3 touchdowns on the ground. The biggest, most physical quarterback in the NFL right now. There's no question about it. We thought that we'd never see guys like Big Ben and Cam Newton again, and those guys aged so quickly and came out of their prime so quickly. Josh Allen has been in the league for a minute now, and right now, to say that at this point in his career, Josh Allen is playing the best version of his best football after he lost his wide receiver one in the offseason, and this was supposed to be a down year for him in that offense, is absolutely remarkable, and people do not appreciate Josh Allen enough until it has come to this point now where he's all of a sudden Josh Allen. The crazy part about Josh Allen is he still has all the rushing touchdowns, all the passing touchdowns, the big explosive plays that we're used to seeing from Josh, the highlight runs, but he has somehow eliminated the turnovers that he had last season and the seasons before. We knew that Josh Allen, we compared Josh Allen on this show and on other shows too, to like a very Brett Favre-ish style of play. You know, Brett, he could give you a great play downfield, but he could also give you an interception. And that's who Brett was towards the end of his career and really throughout it, even though that was before my lifetime. Josh Allen has all the production that we are used to seeing from him offensively, all the great stuff that helps your team win without the turnovers, without the interceptions. And that's what makes it even more heartbreaking yesterday when you watch the Bills lose that game by 2 points, 44 to 42, against the Rams. Matthew Stafford was putting the ball in a keyhole, but so is Josh Allen. And I think I just feel really weird this morning because I still think the Bills are head and shoulders the best team in the AFC right now. They have the head-to-head win over Kansas City. So even if Kansas City, I believe that they're going to win the head-to-head matchup in the postseason and an AFC championship or in any hypothetical game they play in the postseason, I can still recognize that right now I would probably say that the Bills are the best team in the AFC. But then, I feel less confident in the Bills this morning than I previously did, and I feel more confident in Josh, but we already know Josh Allen is a great quarterback. We've already said he's a top 2 or 3 quarterback in the league pretty consistently. Right now, currently, as it stands, he is number 1. He is better than Joe Burrow. He is better than Lamar Jackson. He is better than Jalen Hurts. He is better than Patrick Mahomes, and that's not that crazy to say when you look at his production and the tape this season. He is simply the best quarterback in the NFL right now, but his team, once again, comes up short, and it feels like Josh Allen has to become superhuman or has to play like Superman in order to get the Bills in a position where they have these close losses, and that game gives me a little bit of worry going into the postseason, I'll be honest, because I still think the Bills are one of the best teams out there, but I feel a lot more confident in the Chiefs this morning than I did last week, and they are slowly inching closer. And the only thing to me that's really preventing me from saying the Chiefs are the best team in the AFC is that head-to-head win the Bills have over them. I have to respect that for now, but I've already told you guys in full transparency, I think the postseason is going to be different. And in a head-to-head matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, I will probably end up picking the Kansas City Chiefs. So let's go there. Let's move on to the primetime game, what we saw from Patrick Mahomes. I want to read this stat correctly because it is that shocking. The Kansas City Chiefs are the first team ever to have 3 different kickers kick a game-winning field goal. It is not luck. Luck is not being good. Luck is for losers. At this point, what you are seeing from the Kansas City Chiefs is simply undeniable. That is one of the best teams in the NFL. They are certainly the best coach. And last week I said I didn't think that Andy Reid was the best coach in the NFL anymore. I think I had a Sunday of realizations across the league with our other topics too. I think Andy Reid is the best head coach in the NFL by a mile, and it's not particularly close. And I love Dan Campbell, but what you've seen from Andy, plus Andy's attributes or Andy's successes, the Super Bowls, I know it sounds like a switch up here, but Andy Reid truly does prove on Sunday Night Football why he's the best coach in the NFL. It is not pretty. It is not sexy. It is not flashy. It is not explosive. It is not 500 yards of offense a game anymore. It is not Mahomes throwing for 350 every single week. It's not his rookie season anymore. It's not his second year in the NFL. It's not his third year. This team is different. This team has evolved. And just like the great Patriots teams, this team is going to look different as the players get older and as you have to manipulate the cap more and more and just figure out what your identity is going to be and what your recipe is going to be for success this season. To me, the Kansas City Chiefs, it is not luck that in the biggest moments, different players on their roster come up big. And it's not just Patrick Mahomes. And it's not just Travis Kelce. It is Nick Bolton. It is their corners. It is that defensive line. It is their special teams. We have seen the Chiefs win in literally every possible way at the end of games this season. It is not luck that your special teams is amongst the best, if not the best, in the NFL situationally. It is not a coincidence, and it is not luck, and it is not rigging by the referees or by the NFL that the Chiefs have the best third down conversion rate in the league. There is no better team situationally in the NFL than the Chiefs, and it's not particularly close. And I understand that we're not seeing the explosive production from them that we would like to see, or that we saw previously with Patrick his first 2 or 3 years in the NFL, and the kind of offensive production that you're seeing from the Philadelphia Eagles when they run the ball down teams' throats, or the Buffalo Bills when they score 40+ and Josh Allen has a literal one-of-one historic game. And it's not a Lamar Jackson, Derrick Henry run fest either. But this team is better than any other team at keeping these things close, keeping these games close, and then choking you out in the final minutes of the game and getting the win. And that's what this Chiefs team is doing, and that deserves a lot of respect. You are not lucky. You don't run into luck and just continue claiming luck as an excuse or as a indicator for why you won or as a recipe when you're 12-1. You cannot luck your way into 12-1. This Kansas City Chiefs team has now won their division 9 years in a row since before Patrick got there. This is a well-run team, and that's what this comes down to. They operate so seamlessly, and to me, everybody screamed to say rigged every time the Patriots won games, especially down the stretch, or when they won close games against the Steelers late in the year, or when Tom Brady had a great 2-minute drill that was because of a penalty by the other team on defense or on offense. The Chiefs are just like the Patriots, who were great situational football teams, who everybody in the league wanted to claim rigged, and referees, and luck, and favoritism, and in the end, it didn't matter because they were just better in the biggest moments, which is what these games come down to. Patrick Mahomes is getting the same kind of treatment that Tom Brady was getting. Andy Reid is getting the same kind of treatment that Bill Belichick was getting. You are watching true one-of-ones. You are watching a dynasty unfold right now, and this is one of the best teams in the NFL and is going to be for the foreseeable future. So, we've got a great game tonight. Micah Parsons, Dallas Cowboys, Joe Burrow, all these great guys. I want to talk about this, though, because I saw this over the weekend, and I want to make sure that I've got a billion different papers in front of me. I want to make sure that we are addressing what needs to be addressed here. So, Micah Parsons, over the weekend, gave the Dallas Cowboys and Jerry Jones some contract leverage, which I don't love. Essentially, Micah Parsons went to reporters and was at the podium and was asked in his own locker room, like, hey, what do you think about this upcoming offseason? And Micah Parsons explicitly said, there's not a huge difference between $30 and $40 million. I'm okay with taking a little less to stay in with the Dallas Cowboys and run it back. I've totally come around on this. It is not the player's job to be the GM. If you're an employee, it's not your job to be the CFO or the CEO or the COO or whatever the C of whatever is for your company and say, hey, you know what? I know you're paying me $75,000 or $80,000 a year. You know what? Because I want to keep a great manager or I want to keep a great assistant, I'm going to lower my salary a little bit, and you guys can pay me 72 or 70 or 60 instead. Like, it is not your job as the employee to look out for the big man, the CEO or the COO. It is not Micah Parsons' job as an employee or as a player to look out for Jerry Jones in his pocketbook. Micah Parsons saying, well, I don't mind staying in Dallas and taking a little bit less, and there's not that big of a difference between 30 and 40 million. There's a $10 million difference. There's about 10 million different reasons why, yeah, there's a big difference between those two numbers. I understand that Micah Parsons hasn't played his best football this year, and I've been critical of him, and I've talked about how it feels like in big spots he disappears. But with that being said, Micah Parsons should not be negotiating against himself. Micah Parsons shouldn't dare to tell Jerry Jones, hey, I don't think there's a big difference between 30 and 40 million, so why don't you just lowball me and not make me the highest paid at my position? Another thing he said was, I feel like, I want to make sure I get the quotes right. I feel like you see a lot of times highest paid, then we say we don't have weapons or we don't have this, Parsons said. So I would rather just be in the best situation, you know? At this point, I don't know if there's a big difference between 30 and 40 million in my eyes, and that's just me talking. Micah Parsons also said, at this point, I would rather be in the best situation. Taking less money to stay in the Dallas Cowboys is nowhere near the best situation. It's not the best situation in the NFL. It's not the best situation in the NFC. And it's not even the best situation in your own division. It might not be the second best destination in your own division. It's not even the backup best destination in your own division. I would say the Eagles are a better situation. The Commanders are certainly a better situation with a young rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels, who contract-wise, that might be the best situation for Micah, even though I don't know if he will walk to go to the Commanders, and I don't know if the Dallas Cowboys would allow that. But to say that you're okay taking less to stay in a better situation, and then saying you don't mind running it back with the Cowboys, and you're telling Jerry, hey, I'll take a $10 million per year discount, that's crazy. Micah Parsons should not be negotiating against himself. His agent is David Mulugeta. So I have a ton of faith in the fact that Micah will get his money this offseason. And I'm not going to be crying over here over a millionaire who's going to get a contract that's worth over $250 million. With that being said, I do try, even when being critical of players like I have been Micah Parsons, to look out for the players. Micah should not be negotiating against himself and should not say, I'm willing to take a discount, and talking about how I'm Jerry's guy. You can be Jerry's guy without taking $10 million less. Jerry is going to be rich forever. His kids are going to be rich forever. They're going to have no problem. They're going to be on that yacht for the rest of their lives if they want to. You do not need to take money out of your own pocket to claim that you would rather stay in a good situation. If you like Dallas, just say that. But you can get the max amount of money without cheating yourself out of it. If I'm Micah, if I'm David Mulugeta, who I'm sure has already told him, look, man, we don't have to say all that. You can still stay in Dallas for max money. CD got paid, Dak got paid. Everybody's getting paid around here. You can get paid your worth too without being the only guy that has to take a discount. I don't think Micah Parsons is the best pass rusher in the NFL. I have talked to you guys about my concerns in big moments, how he seemingly shrinks. I've talked to you about how at the end of seasons, specifically at the opening round of the playoffs, since he's a little bit of a smaller guy, I can't help but wonder at his position, since he's a little bit smaller, does he get fatigued? Is the power simply not there? Does he not have the force to be as lethal of a game wrecker as he is at the start of the season? With all that being said, I still have to look out for him, even though he doesn't need me to, and say, man, you can have your podcast, you can say what you want to say, but on this subject, be quiet. Do not be your own worst enemy. And I feel like Micah Parsons was doing just that. Okay, so the Vikings, I saw this report, and I thought this was very interesting. All right, let me start here, because I'm going to go to two bridge quarterback guys that I want to talk about before we wrap up the show. Whether Kirk Cousins will be benched this year overlooks an equally important question. I was reading a great article from Mike Florio over the weekend on Pro Football Talk about the contract situation involving Kirk Cousins and what the Falcons are going to do. The Falcons are now at a point where over the last 4 games, Kirk Cousins has 0 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and the Falcons are 0-4 in that stretch. Kirk Cousins, if you're the Falcons, you have to take a serious look at Kirk Cousins and his contract situation. Kirk Cousins right now, for next year, would be owed $27.5 million. And I might be getting a little bit ahead of myself here, so let me backtrack just a step. The Falcons have made it known. Ian Rappaport went on NFL Network the morning before the games on Sunday and said that the Falcons are not considering benching Kirk Cousins in season, which I guess I appreciate. They're trying to build his confidence, whatever the case may be. They wanted that out for a reason. especially with the Michael Penix hype, because Michael Penix is sitting on the back burner right now. Kirk Cousins is a 40-plus-year-old quarterback coming off an Achilles tear, started off the season relatively well, has had some nice moments, is one of the top 16 quarterbacks in the NFL, but for this really young, really youthful, high upside Falcons team in a very winnable division, I don't know if Kirk Cousins is their guy moving forward. Ben, that contract, look, I've totally changed my tune on this. The Falcons end up being right in more ways than one, and the Falcons did a great job of having a contingency plan in place, even with the Kirk Cousins deal, and we thought, you know what, Kirk Cousins on this show, I believe he's one of the best 16 quarterbacks in the NFL. He's at the top half of the league. Sometimes he'll give you top 12 performances, but he's not going to be that consistently. I thought it was a mistake to draft Michael Penix Jr. Drafting Michael Penix Jr. is the best thing that the Falcons ever did, because now, after the last 4 games, the Falcons are 0-4. Kirk Cousins has 0 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and he is not playing his best football, and you do need a plan in place, not necessarily for this season, but a succession plan in place for next season. Kirk Cousins' dead cap hit, or his cap hit, or what he's owed is $27.5 million in 2025. That's not a ton. That is very easily tradable. Well, Ben, Kirk Cousins has a no-trade clause. The no-trade clause is sometimes blown out of proportion. I don't care if Kirk Cousins has a no-trade clause. Kirk Cousins, if the Falcons tell him, we're going to put Michael Penix Jr. as a starter and you're going to be his backup, yeah, I think Kirk Cousins is going to waive his no-trade clause for the right situation, because he doesn't want to sit as a backup when he could go be a starter somewhere else. So the no-trade clause is not as big of a deal as people are making it out to seem. Worst case scenario here, it was $60 million for 1 year, a 1-year rental for Kirk, and the Falcons end up looking like geniuses at the end of this thing. And I think there has to be a serious conversation about Michael Penix Jr. and the Falcons next season, because Kirk is not playing his best football right now. He hasn't played it in about a month or so now, and a trade would, I want to read the exact findings from Florio. A trade would mean the Falcons spent $62.5 million for a 1-year Kirk Cousins rental. Still, they made their willingness to undermine that investment. They made their willingness to undermine that investment the moment they wrote Michael Penix on a card. I totally butchered that quote. In the end, it was a great line from Florio. They undermined their investment the second they decided to put Michael Penix Jr.'s name on the card there and draft him. They're not that committed to Kirk. They never were. That is obvious by the fact that they drafted Michael Penix Jr. with the 8th overall pick. Michael Penix Jr. looked great in the preseason. I'm sure he's learned a ton. He was already one of the smartest and most pro-ready quarterbacks coming into the league, in my opinion. I told you that, which is why it was mind-boggling that if you're the Falcons, you drafted him to sit. But in the end, the Falcons knew what they were doing, and it looks like it might be the perfect time to not bench Kirk now, but let people know, hey, Kirk is still one of the top 16 quarterbacks in the league, maybe top 18 on his worst day. We can take some flyers. We'll take some calls on him. We can trade him out of here, and they can move on to their next era with Michael Penix Jr. Sam Darnold, last story here. I cannot believe that Sam Darnold is an NFL subject, but he is. So Sam Darnold had an amazing performance over the weekend, and Sam Darnold right now with Kevin O'Connell is absolutely cooking, and Jordan Addison is playing well, and Justin Jefferson is getting touches and catches once again, and this Vikings team is seriously overperforming where we thought they'd be this season, especially considering that they lost the guy who they thought was their future before the season even started in J.J. McCarthy. And I read a report from Mike Florio over the weekend that the Vikings reportedly have not spoken to Sam Darnold about a long-term contract extension, at least not before the game they had not. I think if you're the Vikings, you have to take a serious step back and wonder, do we sign Sam Darnold? As crazy as it sounds, I can't even get the words out. Should we consider signing Sam Darnold to be our bridge quarterback? And I know you drafted J.J. McCarthy, but we've already seen this take place in other places. Right now with Kirk Cousins and with Michael Penix Jr., you can sign a guy to a bridge quarterback contract and still prepare your guy and leave him waiting in the wings. And it doesn't mean that you're giving up on the guy you drafted. It just means that you understand we've got a really solid option right now, and why waste it? Why move away from the hot hand? I think Sam Darnold to me, it is obvious that he's not a top 5 quarterback in the league, and he's probably not top 10. But with Kevin O'Connell as his play caller and as his play designer and as his coach, he's a pretty damn good quarterback, and they can win games with him, and they can win more games than they thought going into the year, and they have proved so many people wrong already. But I think there's a serious conversation that has to be had about, you know what? Why try to get happier than happy? J.J. McCarthy could end up being a top 5 or top 3 or top 10 quarterback in the league. And even if that's not realistic, I'm not going to put limitations on the young man. But with that being said, why try to get happier than happy? If you know that Sam Darnold is a really talented guy who throws a really good ball, who's a really good decision maker, who's playing his best football right now, who is not putting the ball in harm's way, who works really well with your offensive-minded head coach and quarterback whisperer and Kevin O'Connell, why move off that after the end of just 1 year? I don't think that paying Sam Darnold $50 million a year is the answer. But by the same token, I don't think it would be that crazy to say, you know what, let's offer him a bridge quarterback contract, 3 years, like what we gave, a little more than what we gave Baker, for example, kind of Geno Smith, that range. I think Sam Darnold might consider that and accept it because he understands that his best opportunity to win is with those weapons and with that head coach and Kevin O'Connell and with Justin Jefferson and Jordan Addison and TJ Hawkinson and that team. And I think Kevin O'Connell and the Vikings may also realize, you know what? We can still leave J.J. McCarthy on the back burner. We're not giving up on him, but we're going to let him heal up, and we're going to let him do his thing. And we want to see what more we can get out of Sam Darnold here because you know what? Fit is everything. And if I've learned anything over the past few years of covering football, it's that, you know what? Maybe this guy might be a great player, just not great in this system, and he might not be great in this location, and he might not be great with his head coach. And this league has taught so many of us over the past few years, you can't give up on a guy. You can't give up on a Baker Mayfield. You can't give up on a Geno Smith. You can't give up on a Sam Darnold. Sometimes it just comes down to fit, and I wouldn't be shocked if the Vikings end up extending or offering a contract extension to Sam Darnold as a bridge guy. I don't think that's that crazy. We've got a great game tonight. Like I said, I'm leaning right now probably towards the Bengals just because better quarterback, and a lot of these games in prime time that are even if they're dumpster fires because the team isn't necessarily doing well or they're injured or whatever the case may be, which is the case for both the Cincinnati Bengals and the Cowboys. I think it'll come down to the better quarterback. I'd feel stupid picking against Joe Burrow, so I'm going to pick Joe Burrow and the Bengals here. They've got to turn it around. He's playing so well that it feels like he's got to get a win. The football gods have to bless him with something. So I will pick the Bengals. College football, we didn't even get to talk about that. It was crazy what we saw this weekend. In the end, to me, the same people who are complaining about the college football playoff and SMU getting in over Alabama are the same people who claim that the referees are rigging games to the Kansas City Chiefs. If it got to be that close, you didn't deserve to get in. If your favorite football team was playing against the Kansas City Chiefs and you're claiming it came down to a call, if it came down to that call, then your team didn't deserve to win. It was a 50-50 game that broke somebody else's way, and nobody's rigging these games, and there's not some massive conspiracy to rig it against them. If you are complaining because Alabama didn't make it in, at the end of the day, you cannot punish SMU for being good enough to play in their conference championship. Alabama lost 3 games this year, 2 of which were really ugly, 2 of which came to 6-6 football teams, 2 of which games that they didn't play well enough to win, and they quite frankly did not deserve to win. Kalen DeBoer and this Alabama team are going to have to come back better than ever next year or better than they played this year. And they understand, look, the committee broke our way last year and they saw our case. They didn't this year. That's what happens when it comes down to a committee. You cannot leave it in the hands of the officials. I always say this to people who complain about referees in the NFL, especially against high-profile teams like the Kansas City Chiefs. You cannot leave it up to the officials. If you're a boxer, you cannot leave it up to the judge's decision. If you're a UFC fighter fighting in Saudi Arabia and you're fighting, I'm not going to get into it, but like you've seen this play out before, do not leave it in the hands of officials or of referees or of judges. That's what Alabama did by letting SMU play. And at the end of the day, I think SMU is going to get in, and rightfully so, and that's what it looks like right now. And SMU, even if they're not the better football team, and everybody's saying, well, Alabama deserved to get in, deserve is the wrong word when it comes to this committee. They've already shown us time and time again they don't care who deserves what. FSU, you can make the argument, storybook season, lost their quarterback, deserved to get in last year. They didn't get in. This is not a deserve league. This is a football league, and it comes down to football, and in the end, SMU should not be punished for making it to their conference championship, even though they lost against Clemson. Joining us now is a very special guest, someone who has been on the show in the past. He is a dual sport athlete. He's an FMU alum. He just wrapped up what might be his final season of college football, and he has a big announcement to share with us today on this show. I'm so blessed and honored to have him on the program. Christian, how are you doing?
I'm doing good. Of course, I got big news, and we've been going at it together for past few years now. So I'm just always blessed to be welcome on your show for sure. Let's get it started.
I appreciate it, Christian. So could you tell us, let's start with, I want to get into football and we're going to get into all of that, but I want to get into your journey first. What is that special news that you have to share with us? What would you like to tell the people?
So you know that I went to try to transfer out my last season at FMU, and I got an opportunity to come back this year. So I had an incredible season. I had almost 800 all-purpose yards when it comes to returning and receiving. And of course, it's my last season at Florida Memorial University. So, of course, the big announcement is that I will be declaring for the 2025 NFL draft this year, representing as a receiver, kick returner, punt returner, and a guy that wants to be valued as not just an athlete, but as a person off the field in the community and how I represent my last name. So I can't wait till the scouts see this and see my capabilities, not just on the field, but off the field. And let's go. Let's make history.
So now that your college football career is behind you, what is the thing that you're focusing on the most heading into the draft process?
So really focusing on gaining weight. That's my biggest thing is gaining weight, getting strong. Cause I do play the receiver specialist type of guy. So the hits are gonna add up. So gaining weight is key for me, as well as my speed. I have great speed, but you can always get faster. So those are some things that I'm working on. And like I said, I'm that weight aspect is definitely key to me because these guys are hitting. NFL is a very physical game. Football is a physical game. So I'm really excited for that.
Man, this is awesome. I'm genuinely getting chills on your behalf. This is a really cool experience. You've come so far in your journey. You've overcome a lot of adversity. You are a kid from Akron, and you've always wore that like a point of pride, as you should. What would you say to other kids who are watching you in the position that you're in now, going through this process, which has already been so difficult, but is going to be difficult moving forward no matter what, because you're talking about the top 1% of athletes in the world. What would you like young kids to know about this process and what you've learned along the way?
It's kind of funny you said that because I worked out this morning and a guy from my school, like he's younger and he's actually in Twinsburg High School. That's the high school I went to in Ohio. He texted me like, "Hey Christian, I heard you checked out my football career right now." I think he's like a sophomore or junior. He's like, "What's some workouts I should do?" And I'm like, "Keep doing you. Keep doing what you're doing right now. You're doing perfect," and just uplifting them. So that's what I just want to tell the younger generation is just to keep going and keep the main thing the main thing. That's like a great saying that all the top athletes say, keep the main thing and stay focused and persevere because you're going to have doubters. You're going to have naysayers that's going to tell you you can't do it. And like you said, the 1%, especially in my case, I'm at a lower tier school in the NAIA, Florida Memorial, which is at HBCU, the only one in South Florida. So it's definitely a market, but it's definitely going to be a barrier with comparing to the other athletes. So I'm definitely gonna have to work my ass off. I don't excuse my language, but I'm gonna have
You're
to
good.
work.
You're good.
I'm gonna have to work for it for sure.
So you just mentioned it, right? One of the lesser known schools, even though FMU is the only HBCU in South Florida. Obviously, it's got a big brand down here. Know a lot of people at that school around that program, as I'm sure you do too. Are you using the fact that you're not a projected first round pick and that you didn't go to one of the larger schools? Are you kind of stacking the chips and using that to motivate you through this process? Or do you not even think about that?
Of course, it motivates me. Just like when I left Florida Memorial to go and pursue D1 opportunities, it motivated me when I didn't get the opportunities and shots that I wanted. So obviously, I'm still working as hard, and everything motivates me. Really, I'm just a motivated person as well as I'm very self motivated. So I can motivate myself without anybody telling me what to do.
That's awesome. So, what do you think? You mentioned over 800 all purpose yards this season. You do play multiple positions, which I think is good. That keeps your options open at the next level as well, even though, of course, you want to be a receiver, and we're going to vouch for you at that position for sure. And you've got the stats and the tape to back it up. I mean, you've posted some incredible catches on your page that I definitely think people should check out. I will
Yeah.
link your YouTube in the description as well because I know you've got a new YouTube channel where you're going to be
Yes.
allowing us to take a look behind the curtain and follow you
Right.
as you sort of go through this process. What is the one thing or what is the most important thing you feel that you learned in your last college football season this year?
I really learned how like my coaches asked me what were the positives and negatives of this past season and really it was just playing football again. That's what it boils down to. I'm a guy that just loves the game genuinely, loves being around the team, loves being around coached and being coached. So it was just about just being able to play the game again. I was out for a whole year. So think about that. I was watching it on just TV and watching people train and it hurt me in certain ways. So it was just a blessing just to be out there on the field. Really, it's that simple, just being and playing the game.
You've lived an entire lifetime of football throughout your journey and throughout your career, right? Playing when you're younger, playing in middle school, playing in high school, playing at the college football level,
Right.
which not very many people get to do. Throughout this process, you've obviously had the chance to meet a ton of incredible people, make a ton of incredible plays, and just go through the motions of becoming a young man throughout this game, which I think is what the game has given so many of us, including myself, as someone who
Right.
didn't get to play at the next level and didn't even play in high school. I played when I was younger. I love the game. I remain close to it to this day because that's the kind of relationship I have with football, and I think so many of us can relate to that. What is your favorite memory, or is there one that stands out? What's your best memory from the past few years in football?
In football, okay. My favorite memory in football was obviously our first homecoming game ever at Florida Memorial because we've had homecoming. If you know homecoming in HBCUs, it's one of the biggest events at the school. It brings so much money, so many alumni. So our first homecoming game that was played at Trask Powell Field, obviously you know that the in Miami, the mecca of Miami, the high school football. So we used to play there, and we were down 17 points, and we came back and won that game, and that was one of our biggest crowds ever in the history of coming out to see Florida Memorial. So that was one of my favorite games by far, for sure.
Now, I mean, I'm really interested because you're number one, two, and three. Thank you so much for allowing us to sort of make this formal announcement on here. I know you've told some people on social media on your page, but this really is a once in a lifetime experience for me. And for the people who are watching this, I really want to take a look behind the curtain because so many of us know about the NFL draft process. And we've watched the movie Draft Day, of course, and like everybody's heard the song, right? Drake, Johnny Manziel. We've all seen the process, and there's been some documentaries that take you behind the scenes of the good, the bad, the ugly of this process. But now that we've got you on here, I think you have a really unique perspective on this because you're so early in it and because you're always really good about being transparent and letting people know how it really is.
Yeah.
What have been some of the challenges so far that you've encountered in the draft process? Is there a lot of paperwork? Is there a lot of like busy work that goes into it? What is it like behind the scenes?
So behind the scenes, obviously, is training. That's key. Is to be elite, you have to train. That's the key part, as well as finding an agent. That's huge. Finding a person to represent you. And in my case, it's been tough finding a person to take and value not just me, but where I go to school, being an NAIA guy, being an HBCU guy. So that's been key, trying to find a person that really wants to represent me and look at me like this guy is an elite athlete, not just on the football field, but as well as on the track. So that's key. Like the agent is one of the hugest because they can get you in the doors and get you to people that you may never know or may never see. Scouts are looking, but as well as the bowl games, that's key. All-star games to be seen, and the pro days is key as well. Since we're starting up school in football, we struggle with having the resources of finding and being able to have a pro day and getting scouts to our university. So that's what I'm trying to emphasize after this year is working some of our, because we have a great, not just me, we have a great 2025 draft class at Florida Memorial. Great. We have already three guys that have been invited to the HBC Legacy Bowl. That's in Tulane. That's in Alabama. It's a huge bowl for all the best HBCU guys. So I cannot wait to see them. And then as well as me, I've been invited to the Podium Bowl, which is in Miami, South Florida. So I can't wait to represent myself in the school in that.
So you've been invited to two bowls formally, correct? I think you had posted that. I just want to make sure I got the number correct.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so what are you looking to show GMs, teams, coaches, scouts in that game?
So I'm really just want to show them that I'm a hard worker. That when you see me in each drill, each one-on-one, just being coached up, that I'm very, very particular and I very take notes and I like to learn. So I want all the scouts to know that. And I'm an energy guy. So you're going to hear me yelling and screaming and having a good time because I just love the game. So that's just key for me. I want people to know and see me as a person that's not just a self-centered receiver, or because receivers get the diva, get the bougie type of name remarks on us. I'm not that type of guy. I love the game genuinely.
I love to hear that. So now I want to pivot over here to some NFL football talk. You've always been good about giving perspective, right? And giving the perspective of the athlete on the field. I want to start with our primetime game yesterday. The Chiefs, everybody's saying they're the luckiest team in the league because of so many things that go their way at the end of games this season. The Chiefs are the first team ever to have three different kickers make last-second game winners. I talked about this earlier on the show. To me, everybody claims luck and some people claim referees. To me, there is no luck in being a winner, and they have
Yeah.
consistently won games this season. And amongst the many different stats that you could point to, they have the highest third down conversion rate in the league. To
Right.
me, what stood out to you about the Chiefs last night, and what do you think about them going into the postseason?
It's simple. They know how to win. It's simple. They have people that know how to win. They have Andy Reid. He's one of the greatest coaches of all time. So he knows how to win, and they just know how to win in clutch moments. So it's that simple. They're a team now that just knows how to win. And I feel like in the AFC, the Bills, they're very good. That's like the only team I could see to beat them in the AFC right now.
What does your playoff picture look like? Because in mine, I talked about it last week. To me, it is the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills. That's probably going to be the AFC Championship, or it's
Yeah.
going to come down to those teams at least in the AFC. And then I would go probably with Philly and with Philly
Detroit.
and the Lions, right?
Yeah, it's definitely Detroit. I got Detroit winning the whole Super Bowl. They're too talented. Their fan base has been dying for not just a NFC championship, but for a Super Bowl. So, and I feel like Jared Goff, he's been playing as a definitely as a MVP this year candidate, even though it's going to be given to Saquon because his plays have been remarkable this year.
So I actually want to ask you about that. I talked about it earlier in the show. We have had active MVP discussions on this program, not just with myself, but with all of our guests. And obviously things have changed over the course of the season. It felt like Lamar and Derrick Henry were in a two-horse race to start the season. All of a sudden, Lamar's not playing his best version of football, or his best version of his football over the last month. Derrick Henry is still playing great football, but not MVP caliber. And it feels like Saquon and Josh Allen have sort of separated from the pack here. I said to start the show, to me, Josh Allen is the best quarterback in the NFL right now. And I love Mahomes. I love Patrick, but like he's not playing his best football right now. And we know that he turns it on in the playoffs. And two things can be true. He might be the best playoff quarterback and end up being the best quarterback in the league at the end of this year and solidify his spot, but he's not the best right now. And to me, I love Saquon. I think he's second in the running for it. But is he going to be able to compete with the sheer volume of stats that Josh Allen is going to have, considering Josh Allen is a quarterback? That's the reality.
Yeah.
He's touching the ball 60 times a game. He has all of his great touchdown production in the air and on the ground, and he's limited his turnovers, which were his biggest problem. How is this race going to play out?
I have no idea, really. I'm picking Saquon because ain't nobody just jumping over a guy backwards like he did. The play of the year by far. But just like you said, Josh Allen just had 6 touchdowns in a loss yesterday, which is crazy. 3 rushing and 3 passing, which is amazing. But don't even cancel out. Think about Tua. We could put Tua in there. His stats have been ridiculous since he's been back from injury. I know the record isn't looking too good, but they just won a great game yesterday.
I'm going to disagree with you there. I cannot put Tua in that conversation. I would put Tyreek Hill in that conversation before I put Tua. Yeah.
Look at his stats. Look at his stats.
If we went off of stats, Tua would be the best quarterback in the NFL, and he got wiped out last year in a wild card game. I mean, he does not look good in big spots. And there's something to be said. I'll tell you this. When we look at the AFC playoff picture, the Dolphins are not good enough that they're going to beat the Bills in their own division. So that means you're not going to get a home playoff game, which means you are going to play the Cincinnati Bengals, the Baltimore Ravens, the Kansas City Chiefs, the Buffalo Bills. We're talking about Orchard Park, Cincinnati, Baltimore, Kansas City.
And they struggle when it's cold.
These are going to be cold-weathered games, though.
Yeah.
And Tua and the Dolphins in their last 12 starts in games below 40-degree weather, it's not a media created narrative, even though they want to claim that. They're 0-12 in those games. Tua is a little bit smaller. He's not a dual-threat quarterback, and that ball dies on him midair when he's throwing downfield in the cold, as it does with all quarterbacks out there. But Tua is not Josh, and he's not Lamar, so he doesn't have the dual-threat nature that he can extend plays with his legs, and he doesn't have a big enough arm to heave it downfield, and he's not Patrick, and he's not Joe. That's why I really can't wrap my arms around the Tua thing, and so that's kind of, I hate to burst your bubble there, but I've talked about it on the show before. I'm just someone from Miami. I'm not a huge Tua guy.
Okay, I respect that. I'm just saying Tua has been playing lights out this past since he's been back from injury, which was a retirement type of injury. We're not talking about a knee or a back or a hamstring. This was like an injury where people were telling him he should give it up.
I was one of those people who told him not necessarily to retire, but I was like, man, you look at that injury, and if you think there's a 100% chance that he's coming back and playing football, I thought that was crazy. He ended up coming back, and I'm happy for him, but like, Yeah, I mean, health is definitely a thing with Tua. Like, you can't
Yeah.
mention Tua without saying the health.
Yeah, and he's been playing lights out. He just won, even though it was the Jets, it's still hard to win an NFL game. So I count every game as difficult. And he beat Aaron Rodgers. He outplayed AR, which has been struggling this year, even with the best receiver added to his team.
So let me ask you about that. I talked about it earlier in the show. Aaron, now the Jets have officially been eliminated from playoff contention. They have not made the playoffs in 14 years. Aaron was asked after the game in his locker room by one of the reporters, hey, how do you feel about the Jets not making the playoffs for 14 years? Now, I'm one of those people who I'm low-key sick of the Aaron Rodgers thing when he goes to the podium and he talks. It's just annoying. It feels like he's not giving me an authentic response. It feels like
Yeah.
he's trying to be the natural-born contrarian when it's like, look, this is not a conspiracy, bro. You're just not playing well and your team's not playing well. To me, though, that question from that reporter was a little out of pocket. Aaron, I thought, played great yesterday. Like you said, if anything, Tua outdueled him. It wasn't like Aaron played bad. Those balls had a zip on them. He was throwing like he was throwing during those MVP years. He looked confident. Right. He was stepping up in the pocket. And the Jets not making the playoffs for 14 straight years, you can't blame that on Aaron, who has only been there for 2, one of which he was injured. I think Aaron deserves a decent portion of the blame for the Jets this season. But what do you think about that question? And what do you think about, of course, the narrative surrounding that entire thing now?
Honestly, it was up in the air for me once they got Devontae Adams, and the way he left the Raiders was kind of like iffy, was kind of in the middle. And AR, he's been talking bold since he got there. So now when things aren't working out, it's like, what's happening? Like it's like a whole total disaster. I know these guys are pros and they work their tails off, but sometimes you just got to keep playing with the bullets. So I hope they finish the season strong, especially AR, because this might be his last season, but I don't feel like he wants to end it off like this. This would not be a good end off.
I know he doesn't want to end it like this, but like you look
He
at
does
Aaron
not.
at the end, and it makes you not take for granted. It makes you appreciate what Tom Brady did there at the end even more. Like Aaron had some great zip on the ball, threw some great passes, looked confident again on Sunday against the Dolphins, right? But like to say that Aaron is the same player he was 3 years ago is just not the case. And to me, like, I don't know how if you're Aaron, you don't consider hanging it up, because to me, this Jet saga has honestly, I know we'll remember Aaron for his best days in Green Bay. Nobody's going to take that away from him. We will remember the Super Bowl and the MVP years. But this saga at the end with the Jets just leaves everybody with a really bad taste in their mouth. And people will say, well, Tom didn't go out on top either. Tom was an MVP runner-up and won a Super Bowl in a different place, and everybody understood with his personal life and the Giselle divorce going down at the time, everybody cut him some slack. Brady looked better that last year than Aaron does right now, and the team certainly performed better than Aaron's Jets have. Like, to me, if you're Aaron, you have to consider seriously hanging it up. What do you think?
I think he's not going to end it off like this. It's no way in hell, especially he just got his best and favorite receiver. Think about it. Think about what they lost this year. They lost a lot this year. The defense was struggled. The offense has struggled. They lost their head coach and the start of the season almost. It feels like he got fired 2-3 months ago, which is crazy, which changes and shifts. I've been in the football locker room. That shifts a lot from what you are taught and what you go through on a day-to-day basis. But he's a huge professional, and I feel like he's not going to end it off like this. No way. Especially now that they got Devontae Adams.
So here's my, I guess, not rebuttal to that, but like here's where I think, look, you could be right? You don't want to go out like that. I totally understand that perspective. But to me, if you're Aaron, there has to be a sense of realization. The Jets right now, with their 3-10 record, not making the playoffs, already being out of contention for the 14th year in a row, they currently, according to Tankathon, have the 7th pick right now if the season were to end today in the NFL draft. You've got a top 10 pick. Aaron has to know if he's coming back next year. If I'm Woody Johnson, I have to be transparent with Aaron. I have to say, look, I don't necessarily mind you coming back next year. We don't think you're the problem or the only problem with this team. We'd like to give you another year, and we owe you that, or we don't owe you that, but we'd like to give you that. But we are going to draft a quarterback with the 7th overall pick, and we may even trade up to get a guy. Are you okay next year with someone sitting behind you and potentially, if you don't perform well, eventually taking your place as a starter at some point next season? You've got to be real. And I don't know if Woody has that in him. He's like I don't know him personally, but like every report that I read is like he's kind of a quirky guy, and he's not totally into the confrontation stuff, and he's real loud and boisterous and goofy, but that's just not him. And I don't know who the realist in the room is going to be, who's going to tell it to Aaron. And I don't know if Aaron will be okay with that or not. I'm not saying he won't be, but we saw how the Jordan Love thing played out. He ended up using it as motivation to play better, which you would love, but that was also Aaron 4 or 5 years ago now. It's a totally different league, and Aaron's a different person. Is Aaron okay with coming back next season to the Jets if he's not the starter, if he's not the guaranteed starter throughout the entire course of the season because they draft somebody? What do you say?
Personally, whoever gets the draft pick to be behind or in front of Aaron Rodgers, that's a blessing. That's a person. I'm pretty sure Zach Wilson will be kind of happy that he has such a great quarterback to look at him day to day. Look how he drinks water. Looks how he eats. Like, you just never know. Some guys like me, I want to be in front of greatness. So you can look at it like that, but then obviously the pride kicks in with AR, and like, he knows this is the ending and he doesn't want to end it off like this. So he could do a goodbye little press conference after this year, but I feel like no, he's not done. He's not. Especially they got Devontae Adams this year. They for sure aren't done.
It's interesting. I can't wait to see how it plays out. We've got plenty of season left. The postseason football is around the corner. You are preparing for the most important moment of your life. We wish you the best of luck, Christian. And yeah, man, we'll be rooting for you. I will link your YouTube in the description below. So if anybody's watching this and you're watching it to the end, number one, we definitely appreciate you guys. Retention is an important part of this show. But also make sure to check out Christian's channel and his socials, because this is a really cool opportunity to see not one of the top guys like a Shedeur Sanders or a Travis Hunter who's going to keep a lot of that process a secret or behind closed doors, rightfully so. That's their decision. But you, Christian, you've always done a good job of being transparent and being real. And I think peeling back the curtain on this process will be so helpful for anybody who wants to be a journalist, anybody who wants to be an athlete, anybody who just wants to follow along and is a football fan. I appreciate the hell out of you, and we will definitely be rooting for you, okay?
I appreciate you. It's always nice to be on the show. It actually froze not too long ago. The recording, I was like, it stopped and then it just started back up. So I'm glad it just kept going. But I appreciate you always joining the show. I'm actually going to post my wallpaper of me declaring on my social media today. Me and my coaches, we've been fighting for the edits, who's going to edit it the best. But definitely cannot wait for you to be a part of this journey, because you are a huge part of this journey. You're probably one of the first people to really look at me and value my talent as well as my off the field, trying to get myself out there to the people, because I'm very positive. So I appreciate you always.
I appreciate you, man. You deserve way more credit than I do throughout this process. Everybody, he just said he low-key plugged his IG. So everybody, if you're watching this, go like that post once it's up. And if he hasn't posted it by the time this show is posted, then follow him and turn on post notifications and be a real one. I appreciate you so much, Christian. We will see you next time, okay?
Appreciate you.
And with that, that is all for this week's episode of the Benjamin Cure Show. Thank you so much for tuning in. A big thank you to Christian Edgerson for sharing his special day and his special announcement with us. As I get a little bit older and this show goes on a little bit more, moments like that are what make this show special. I love that we have become a facilitator for other voices in the sports world, whether you're a journalist, a fan, an influencer, a content creator, a player, a coach, whatever the case may be. I love that moment. I really appreciate Christian for doing that on this show, and I wish him the best of luck. Big year for us. This is not our last show of the year. At least I don't think right now. Maybe I'll see as we get closer to next week, because there's a lot going on with the end of the semester and a lot going on in my personal life and whatnot. But yeah, we have had a big year, and we're coming up on 3 years of doing this show. And I posted this on my story if you follow me on Instagram, and I posted this on social as well, on Twitter and on LinkedIn. The show had a total amount of 3 million views over the past year across all platforms: Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. We had over 34,000 hours of watch time. For reference, I think to me, even with all the great stats out there, 213% or 216% year-over-year increase in total audience, the 3 million total views across all platforms. To me, the 34,000 hours of watch time is the craziest. There are 8,000 hours in a year, about 8,000. 34,000 hours of watch time at the Benjamin Cure Show across all platforms. That means that collectively you guys watched over 3 years. I'm terrible at math. Yeah, over 3 years. Is it over 4? 8 times 4. It's over 4. Okay, so there we go. So over 4 years of Benjamin Cure Show content, close to 5. in just 1 year. I appreciate the hell out of you guys. We are obviously getting better and growing, and this has been an incredible journey. I appreciate you guys for always remaining loyal and for tuning in and for listening and for hearing my perspectives as I kind of work my way through this industry. This has been a great test run, if nothing else, to see what it would be like at the next level to be able to talk about sports, and you guys have made that possible, and I really appreciate you guys for that. As always, like, subscribe, share with your friends. I super appreciate it. Thank you so much for an amazing 2024. I think I'll be back next week. Not sure, though. Might take a couple weeks off in the holiday season, but thank you for tuning in, and I will hopefully see you back here soon.